What is the most significant thing you've done at home, at work, in government, or in the community to help protect our fragile climate? Please name just one action, and if possible, quantify its results. So 90 seconds for this.
Well, I want to thank QCAN for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. I just want to let you know, before we got these questions, I was thinking I was back in college again and I was going through a course and trying to find all this information. All of you are the activists, all of you are the specialists that understand this a little bit more than I do. I like to facilitate this information to the specialists, bring you all in, and then work on these issues. And that's what I'm facilitating at the city council level, is to allow people like yourselves to have that conversation. This past year, I was in the living room of QCAN, going through a meeting, talking about what we were going to do at the city council level. And what we initiated was the electric cars. What we did with that at the city council level, we brought a resolution forward with Councilor Finn and Councilor Nina Liang. We put it forward to ask the mayor to allow this electric car for some of our fleets of cars out there. That's part of the emissions. We put it forward. We gave it to the mayor to recommend and see if he would like to act on it. And that's what we're initiating. So for me as a councilor at large, what I've done over the last 2 years has initiated some type of progress with allowing and facilitating this information. I listened to all of you. I listened to QCAN, and I moved it forward. That's what I'm willing to do in the next 2 years as your councilor at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Representing Ward 1 for the last 8 years, I represented the most vulnerable coastal district in our community, and I've spent a lot of time working on this matter. Right off the top of my head, it can talk about tide gate controls at Post Island, our coastal infrastructure, the repairs to the seawalls, the outfalls, the removing of silt from our catch basins being cleaned. Our marsh restoration project, I remember working with the Neponset River Watershed Association, and we were working on a project in the Neponset River. We were able to leverage those funds and bring them over to Broadmeadows Marsh. We did a 40-acre salt marsh restoration in Broadmeadows Marsh. By show of hands, who's walked out Broadmeadows Marsh? It is spectacular. I was just there this past weekend with my family walking the dog. Marsh restoration, these soft solutions. As we were bringing forward some of the seawall planning for the section we're working on now, we got a grant for that. I actually brought the engineer, brought him around, showed him the most vulnerable areas, talked about repetitive loss, talked about why it was so important in advocating for us to qualify for this funding, and we talked about what are the other soft solutions, what can we do on the water side of the wall, what about natural breakwaters, what about some of these artificial reefs, what about opportunities to slow that wave energy down on the water side of the wall, so we're preventing the homes and reducing flooding. I think we've done a lot of work at the city with the citywide seawall assessment to reduce flooding. Edgewater Drive, one of the worst chronic flood areas, has been dry. We replaced that outfall pipe, and these are projects not only did I advocate for, I worked on, I executed and stayed in touch with my constituents.
Thank you. I know I'm short on time, but I do just want to take a moment to thank all of you at QCAN for having us here tonight. So the question of what we've done in our personal lives or what we've done at work to move towards reducing our carbon footprint here in the world. When I was working with my family's restaurant group, as I'm sure all of you are aware, restaurants have a lot of waste, whether it's the takeout containers, the takeout materials, or the food itself. And one of the 10 restaurants that we opened and that I had a part and was able to open, we actually were opening in a LEED certified building, and so we went to composting, and it was new for all of us, the staff, the management team, but it was a great benefit. We found that although on the front end it looked like it was going to be more costly because we had to pay for different bags, we had to pay for training for our staff to make sure that we're sorting things properly. On the back end, we ended up saving money in less than a year. The reason for that is because what we were throwing out in waste was in compost, and the cost to actually compost was less than what we were paying for the trash. And so we found that the amount that we paid for trash removal in the building went down. So our cost went down with the landlord, and then our cost for composting ended up balancing out, that we had more savings than not. So that's just one example, and that's something I'd like to bring forward as my role as your city councilor as well. We have a lot of growth, a lot of development here in this city. There's no reason why we can't implement that same LEED certified mentality, to get all of our apartments and the new restaurants to go forward with composting, and that's just one step that we can make, I believe, to, again, reduce our carbon footprint. Thank you.
Again, I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. So this isn't something that's new to me. I've been following the issues of greenhousing for many years, and the reality of it is that we have to do more in the city of Quincy. Personally, at our own home, we do recycling, we do composting, and in the schools, in the Quincy Public Schools, while I've been on the school committee for the last 12 years, we were encouraging education in the schools to make sure that kids understood the value of recycling, composting, and the things that they can do in the future for themselves. I see one of the teachers here in the audience here tonight. The reason why this is so important is that the solutions that we are having now, it's getting more cost effective for us to be able to bring those solutions to Quincy, but we're kind of behind the 8 ball of what we're doing. And we need to get more proactive in our community so that we can actually catch up to where we need to be. But we also have to make sure that we're putting the information in the schools so that our students have the opportunity to see the future of where they want to go, because it's an economic engine as well. It's the future for where they're going to be going to. So there's multi-prongs to the environment that we need to be looking at. And we have to look at it globally too, because we have a lot of responsibility that's happening here in the city of Quincy. The development that we're having, we have to also look at what we're doing and how we're doing it in the city, because it is impacting our community, because we're not taking into consideration where those waters are going to go. And that is one of the reasons why we've had so many problems in the city of Quincy with flood issues. So this is a big issue. It's not going to be solved in 90 seconds, but it is something that we do have to discuss and stay on top of and be proactive about it. And we haven't been proactive enough. But I thank everybody for being here, because it's a beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, QCAN, for the invitation. Thank you all for coming. It's a pleasure for me to be here. My name is Dan Raimondi, and I'm one of the candidates for council at large. Out of the many things that I've accomplished, both in my personal life as well as publicly, what I'd like to focus on tonight, or to answer this particular question, is open space. Because I think that's on the minds of perhaps many of you, in having a long-range, not only plan, but also a funding source to guarantee that whatever the needs of the city are, whether it's an economic upturn or an economic downturn, there's a steady funding source that can provide the necessary revenue in order to enhance, rehabilitate our parks, playgrounds, open space acquisition, beaches, and so forth and so on. So we start with the city budget, and we know that police, fire, schools usually have the top priority, as well they should. And if things are not going so well, things like open space acquisition, obviously playground maintenance, things like that, take a turn for the worse. So I decided to do something about it. And I wrote a hotel-motel legislation that in the beginning had tremendous amount of opposition. But we persevered and led the way. And since the enactment of that law, signed by the council, signed by the mayor, approved by the House of Representatives, Senate, signed by the governor, $15 million have come into the city strictly to improve our parks, playgrounds, open space acquisition, and beaches. Thank you very much.
I definitely agree that we should be clean. We should have a clean city. We should be efficient. I believe all those things. But there's one thing that is on my mind, and that is, how far do we go? What I want to say is, what do the people want? Do they want somebody who is looking out for their best interests, who, yes, wants to modernize but not globalize, someone who wants the best for the city and lower the costs as much as possible that they have to pay out of pocket for their taxes? Or do they want somebody who's a salesman for special interests, who wants to peddle every single cottage industry of the global warming industry? I come with a little bit more knowledge. I'm a software engineer with 30 years of experience. I have my name on a patent. I developed surgery over the internet. So I understand a lot of things about technology, and I've been studying this issue for years. And please elect me. Thank you very much.